What do pre-service language teachers can do in order to teach online courses with online activities? How to facilitate the development of knowledge and skills for online learning in pre-service English language teachers? Which are better ways to support the development of communicative competence in the foreign language with the use of online resources? These are some general questions that are raised with these problems. Compton already made the following recommendations to improve the state of language teacher preparedness. Developing online language teaching skills through existing courses. Developing online teaching at different levels of expertise, responsibilities, and I can see okay, sorry. So the recommendations made by Compton are developing online language teaching skills through existing courses, developing online teaching skills at different levels of expertise and responsibilities for different roles, revamping existing technology training, implementing early virtual field experiences and virtual practicum, and getting in touch with online learning communities. What are online learning communities? These are a group of specialists willing to learn from each other by sharing their knowledge, points of view, and experiences. In these communities, specialists and teachers with high levels of knowledge and skills converge. Behind these recommendations and definition of online learning communities, there's a view of teachers' preparation based on experiences that bring together both theoretical and practical learning, and communities are seen as valuable sources of knowledge. So the study I'm presenting has as its general objective to provide a pre-service EFL teacher with the opportunity to start developing teachers' knowledge and skills for online language learning and teaching. As specific objectives, I have here to identify basic and important information that constitutes specific knowledge and skills for online learning, theories, processes, and tools, and to design and implement an online language learning sequence for EFL incorporating processes and tools of online learning. The study was conducted in 3 stages. The phase 1 consisted in an inductive research process. Here, at this stage, the pre-service teacher got in touch with a community of experts, distance learning experts. They were invited by one of a distance learning teacher, and they continued to invite others. So we got a group of 11 teachers who were interviewed in Mexico City. And this gave us as a result a corpus of 10 interviews for categories identification. The phase 2 consisted in preparing the experiential component. First, the pre-service teacher conducted a literature review that investigated on the category instructional design. Later, he designed the experiential component. Phase 3 consisted into the practicum, implementing and evaluating an online learning sequence in Moodle based on David Mary's model for online learning of English at the intermediate level in a BA program in languages teaching in Mexico. This study was conducted in a state university. I'm going to talk more about it later. So for the study, a questionnaire with 24 questions for a semi-structured interview was devised. The questions ask about the experts' background information, their education, their opinions and experience on distance education and online teaching environments. The questions also sought to get information about basic principles for online education and the online education teachers' basic preparation, knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Some other questions sought to get information about the students' characteristics and skills that are needed for online learning. So as we said before, we had a group of 11 distance learning teachers ranging between 32 and 50 years old, and they work in public and private institutions in Mexico City as instructional designers, material designers, and online tutors. So from the analysis of the corpus of interviews, we identified 4 big categories: instructional design, digital literacy, students and teacher learning management systems related with online learning. The focus is going to be on instructional design, and related to this category, there were other subcategories identified, such as definitions, types of instructional designs based on different learning theories, activities and teaching strategies related to the concept of cognitive presence for online learning, evaluation of learning, self-regulation, and design evaluation. What is instructional design? As it was said by one of the experts in an interview, instructional design is a group of strategies and techniques and ways to approach educational elements that will allow you to organize contents, resources in an efficient, very precise way, to provide the student with much more independence and autonomy, because attention is paid to the teacher-student interaction and to the resources that can be put to use for acquiring knowledge, to develop skills, to encourage attitudes that are related with the field of knowledge. From another interview, the following phases of instructional design were identified: analysis, design, development, implementation, and evaluation. An example of an English course where the notion of instructional design is missing was provided in one more interview. This teacher said, she was talking about this English course, an online English course. English was terrible. There were only texts that had been uploaded, and the only thing that the students had been asked to do was to answer to some questions which were in Spanish. That had nothing to do with instructional design, and they weren't learning English at all, really. They were taking English 1 and 2. As time passed and the next generations arrived, a course was designed where students had to interact, where students had to do exercises, a course where they even had to record themselves in an audio file. They had to produce short videos that had to be uploaded. That already required other type of activities, and they also learned the grammar rules. So in her memory, what she was recalling, at the end, she provided information of what it seems to be a course with an instructional design behind. So what's David Merrin's model for instructional design? The experience I'm going to share here selected this model because it was the one that most of the experts, yes, mentioned, and because it's based on theories of learning that first suggest presenting students a problem, a situation, or a case very close to similar ones they are going to face when they are communicated in the foreign language. And there are 4 different stages around the problem that the students have to go through. In the stage 1, which is activation, the activities need to link previous experience and knowledge with the current learning task. In the stage 2, demonstrate, the activities need to show how new information, content, and operations is used and applied to solve the initial problem. Here, students get examples, counterexamples, processes, and they are shown the behavior they are expected to show. In stage 3, apply, students get activities where they practice the new learning content, operations, and actions through interactions and feedback. This is the time for error detection, error correction, but also praising their success. The stage 4, integrate. In this stage, students perform successfully in a more complex task where the reflection and creation are ways to both defend and use the new knowledge or the skill. So this experience was set in university in Mexico, a state university where I work in. And I was involved in part of the design of the study, but also an in-service teacher and a pre-service teacher who collaborated in setting the learning objectives, the content, and the temporality for the implementation of the sequences to be designed. These sequences were for an intermediate level English course with 23 students, ages 23 to 37, whose L1 is Spanish. The students took English every week, and Moodle was being used only as a repository for PDF files with information and exercises. Students had little experience in using Moodle despite being familiar with internet and social networks. This is what the activities in the activation, situation, presentation phase look like. The situation was consisted in reading a dialogue where students were talking about preparing for a discussion about the financial problems that affect university students. And the language focus is on discussing personal finances, the expression of regrets, advice, and focusing the students' attention on the use of forms like wish statements in the past tense and vocabulary related with finances. This activity was presented in the course in Moodle in a forum. There were 4 questions related to what the students were talking in the case. The students in the classroom had to read the situation and leave their comments and start a discussion, so they would interact with each other. In the phase demonstration, the preservice teacher provided in the platform a comparison chart and a link to a video in YouTube where students could study the explanation and the grammar forms and their meanings. For the phase 3 application, the preservice teacher designed a Moodle in quiz where the following exercises were included: matching the form with the implied meaning, choosing a verb and providing its conjugation, the correct tense to convey the indicated meaning. And there were also some sentence transformation into wish statements. For the integration phase, these activities were done in the in-classroom session, the presential session with the in-service teacher, and students wrote a text where a similar past experience is described for the expression of regrets. And there were also role plays implemented by the expert teacher with the students. In the plan, there was the idea of having a debate, but this wasn't possible for this sequence because of time constraints in the presential session. So evaluation of the experience, the students in a questionnaire, they provided some comments about the sequence that was designed by this pre-service teacher. They said that it promoted participation and interaction, engagement during the whole sequence, in the forum activity, in answering the quiz, and with the exercises. The forum was a space to write their ideas. They liked the possibility of having asynchronous access to the online quiz and materials with explanations. And while exploring the activities in the platform, students too became aware of some of the resources available in Moodle: email, file sharing, the forum, quizzes, links to web pages with videos. Students also supported each other in becoming familiar with the resources available in Moodle, increasing their digital skills for this type of learning environments. The preservice teacher, he got sense of control on the activities and design. He wrote on his diary, creating my own quizzes instead of using an online quiz helped me to get real practice. It was the first time practice in using the activities in Moodle and in following a specific model of instructional design. He also wrote, thinking on the activities and purpose for each phase in Merrill's model represented a move away from instructional sequences such as the presentation, practice, production, taught to and known by pre-service language teachers. Also, he said, it required thinking on a way to contextualize forms and their meaning, as well as a vocabulary for the intended use. The preservice teacher reflected and identified the double role that he played, instructional designer and tutor. As instructional designer, he focused on understanding and identifying the type of activities that would help students to attain the learning objectives in each of the phases in the instructional model, but he also evaluated the outcomes. In the forum discussion, the students provided their ideas, but the interaction wasn't bidirectional in the sense that the students seemed not to take into consideration each other's ideas as expected. The pre-service teacher assisted the students with questions about the content of the activities, Moodle, etc. For the in-service teacher, he used the in-classroom session to implement the activities where students produced what they had previously studied and practiced. There was increased awareness that ICT, Moodle, and online resources can be used to make time between classroom sessions much more productive. The experience helped to build self-confidence in using ICT resources to support language learning. Knowing what teaching in online courses takes and involves technical, pedagogical, and evaluation knowledge and skills. Becoming familiar with Moodle, its activities and activity logs that the system produced was also gained in this experience. The future sequences should include enough exercises for demonstration and practice, which are varied in modality and in complexity level to support new vocabulary and more complex tasks for students with higher language skills with the same class where needed. So to conclude, this study allowed for the communication with a group of specialists in online teaching and learning whose contributions inform knowledge and experiences, provided a pre-service teacher with information for further documentary investigation on distance and online learning, genuine motivation and self-confidence for the practicum. The study also provided a framework for applying some basic pedagogical knowledge and online learning skills, the concept of instructional design for online EFL teaching and learning, and playing the roles of designer and tutor at the novice level. Pre-service language teachers can start building their confidence as language teachers using online learning resources. This as long as feedback on the design and its implementation is provided and self-reflection is promoted. Language teacher education programs can benefit from this type of experiences where pre-service teachers have the opportunity to get both knowledge and hands-on experience for designing technology-mediated language lessons. Here are some references, and this is where I finish my presentation. If we still have time for some questions.
Yes, indeed. Before that, I'd like to ask the audience to unmute themselves and then to give a applause for our speaker.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That was a really interesting talk, and it was kind of inspiring. I don't really have a question. I don't know how to make a question with this, but your research was done in 2018, so it was before the pandemic. It's almost like you had a vision of what was going to come. And for many of us, we don't know much about online teaching, and we haven't had this kind of experience. So do you have any advice for teachers who have been thrown into this suddenly with their students who also don't know much about online teaching? And, you know, give some advice for us who are just muddling through this.
Mm-hmm. So as you said, this was before the pandemic. And my advice to language teachers who are new in using online resources is to try out as many resources as possible. There are many applications, but with a sense of sound organization, with a purpose. And I think this is what underlines the concept of instructional design. As the same way we do it in presential courses in the classroom, we need to plan our lessons, and there are objectives, content, and there are activities, strategies, ways of evaluating. This taken into the online courses poses some challenges because online courses have their own time and their own rhythm. And the key is to take into account those situations. And also there is this issue of the synchronous, asynchronous activities. So there are more chances sometimes for even giving students more opportunities for practice, preparing before the lessons, than being in the presential lessons. And for this experience, this was very important and necessary. And the preservice teacher realized that, because for the program, this was conducted as part of his BA thesis. There are courses that the students take only during 1 day per week, and which is not enough time for developing their language knowledge and skills. So knowing from the experts, and this was very motivating for the student and even for me, than opening a book, by asking and talking to them, it gives you the sense of getting firsthand information and sound advice on what to do and what not to do. So the pre-service teacher is just a novice teacher. He's just getting ready to go into the real world. But the advice then is to try resources, but always with a purpose in mind. I think that's the one of the lessons we learned from this experience. And it took throughout 2018, yes, for the interviews, then processing the information, but he was working in 2019 still with the thesis project.
Can I ask just one more question about the
Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. We
It's
really
just
have to
a
keep to the
answer.
schedule because the next speaker will be waiting to come in. So if you, Kalinka, if you're willing to go to the Hangouts room, maybe.
Diane, if you wish.
I won't be going to the breakout room, but thank you very much for your interesting talk.
Sure,
I
welcome.
enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Dan.
Good job.
Thank you for moderating.
My pleasure.
Thank you.